You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So it is organization week over here, and this episode I am here to give you some actionable strategies that you can start implementing right away. So remember, your homework was to think of 3 areas that would make your counseling life easier if they were more organized. I heard from some of you, so thank you for sharing that with me. And now I want to tell you some actionable strategies that you can start working on right away. So I've got 5. Let's dive in. Number 1, create a caseload spreadsheet. So what do I mean when I say caseload? I mean every single kid you're seeing, except for class lessons, because that should be the whole school. That would be a lot to write down. But every kid that you're seeing in a group or individual session, I want you to have them on a spreadsheet. I want your spreadsheet to have different columns and to be color-coded. So how I like to do this is the students who you're seeing individually will be clear. They will have no color assigned to them. The students who are seeing in groups will have colors. And the reason this is important is because people may be added in at different times. So all your group kids aren't going to be like necessarily one row after the other. So you can see who belongs with which group. Now, if you're seeing a student individually and in a group, I like to put their name on there twice. This could get a little tricky when you're counting, maybe for an end of the year report or something. Maybe use an asterisk to identify this, that they're on there twice, so you're not confused. But I like to put them on there twice so you can tell the clear line, you're using them individual, and then the purple line, they're in a anger management group or something like that. So those are your rows are just going to have the color stripe going across. But then I'm going to read to you the different columns, okay? So I know it's a little tricky. It's better seen visually. So you want to be sure to download that freebie, the Stress-Free School Counseling freebie, so you can get some visuals for this. But I'm going to tell you verbally what your columns would look like. So for the caseload spreadsheet, you want to have the student's name, obviously, their teacher, and their grade. So these are just identifying factors if you need to contact them. The area of need. So this is where you're going to write the topic that you will be working on with them. So anger management, grief, self-esteem, whatever. And then the counseling type. So this is where you'll specify if it's group or individual. Now remember, with the colors, it's obviously showing it's a group, but I like to have it in here just in case. And the next column, you're going to put who you received the referral from. So who were they referred by? Maybe a parent, a teacher, themselves. Maybe it was you, the principal. Then I have a column for contacted parents. So have you contacted their parent? So maybe that means saying, hey, Marcy was recommended for counseling. What do you think? I'm sending home a permission slip, something like that. So make a note if you've contacted them. Make a note if you've sent a permission slip. That's one column. Make a column for if you've received a permission slip. This is super important. And then as you get them in, you just, put them in a file folder. But this way you can track who's sent or which permission slips have been received by whom. Then ask teacher the ideal time. So you want to find out. Now, in the scheduling episode, I mentioned how teachers sign up for you. So they're signing up for those class lessons. But if it's a group or an individual, I don't have like all my available time slots in a sign-up fashion. I mean, I suppose you could do that. But I just reach out and say, hey, when's the best time to see the student? So you need to wait for them to get back to you. And remember, our time management piece, you're not checking your email all day. So while you're still waiting, you're just going to have that box blank. But then you can put an X in or a check mark once they get back to you with the ideal time. And then finally, did you schedule the sessions? So it's a lot of steps, and you're likely doing these just kind of without thinking. But by having them all laid out, you can see who has gone through which steps. So if you have a group and then you see, 2 kids still haven't turned in their permission slips, it's time for the first session. Go ahead and remind them or make sure you get it to them. Great way to stay organized. Number 2, create a counseling log. So this is a really cool way to keep track of everything. Now, a funny backstory to this is this counseling log was born out of frustration, I guess. my two jobs before I was a school counselor. So one, I was the resource counselor, the nonprofit, and there I loved that job. We had to take a lot of notes just to kind of document our clients' progress. And so I kind of got used to note taking there. But then at the job I really did not like, the educational consulting place, one of our tasks was to make these like really intensive logs every week, and it was a big spreadsheet and just not enjoyable. Like my least favorite part of that job. But when I started implementing the system for myself and I saw the need for it, I actually became fond of those experiences because they really gave me an idea of how to organize this in a good way. So, flowers out of concrete, right? So the columns that you will have in your counseling log are date, student name, again, area of need, counseling type. So you may say, wait, this sounds the same, but it's different. This is where you're logging every day who you're seeing. So that's why it has the date. And then the student name, area of need, counseling type. Now it's going to get a little different, the duration. So the amount of time your session lasted. Now, this provides more detail than your Google Calendar appointment. So you may have had 30 minutes blocked off on the calendar, but they're late, or you're factoring in travel time to go pick them up, so you only talk to them for 20 minutes. So your counseling log ends up being more accurate than a Google Calendar if you're trying to track services provided. So you can write exactly how long that you met with them. And then the strategies used. So write a little brief summary of what you did so you can remember for next time. So you're not writing out every, detail that was discussed, but you could say, oh, we did a self-esteem mirror exercise and a craft or something like that. Okay, and that way you don't repeat an activity. That way you know which activities you've already done. And if a parent or their teacher says, hey, what have you been working on with them? I'm not going to lie, I've blanked before. You're seeing so many kids and you have so much going on and you're like, oh, and then they're like, what, you don't even know what you're working on with my kid? So you can say, oh, actually, let me tell you, we've been doing this, 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 and this. And then there's a note section. So I don't always write something in that column each time, but it is a space to share like student temperament, important updates. So if a student is especially upset one day, or if something happened that is kind of influencing their life at school, make a note of it in there. And then a parent communication column. So I would only write in there if I spoke to the parent that week, and then I would write the date and like a brief note about what we discussed. So if I didn't talk to their parent during that week, I would leave it blank. But that's a really good way to track parent communication. And keep in mind that your sessions are confidential and that you only want to provide enough information to be helpful to remind yourself what was covered. So that's going to be in those strategies used section or the notes section. And you don't want to share too many personal details, especially if you're sharing the sheet with someone else. So for example, this sheet I had shared, that's a lot to say, right? With my principal. So they could see everything. So you want to keep and, only share that information that is helpful, but you're not spilling all the beans. Now, this counseling log is like the hub of what you're doing day to day. And you also have that caseload spreadsheet. So you really could make one big hub and have these on two different tabs at the bottom and just have that thing open all day. Now, I told you not to have your email open all day, but you can have this open all day because you'll be going back and forth to it each time. And when you already have it set up, you just go in and type a few sentences in between kids. Now, again, I said to schedule in on your Google Calendar, you want to factor in like travel time and kids being late. Factor yourself in a few minutes to type in the notes. That way you're always caught up. Okay, now step 3, voice memos. So let's say that you're like, I don't have time to sit down and type in this thing that just happened because I have a group coming in. The kids are early. They're already in here with their lunches for lunch bunch while this individual student hasn't even walked out the door. Like, that's more reality, right? Voice memos are your friend. So you can use a quick voice memo on your phone, and then that way you already have it digital. Use like voice to text in the notes section of your phone, and then you can just copy paste it later. That way you're eliminating sticky notes and scrap paper, which we said were messy for 2 reasons. One, they could potentially break confidentiality, and 2, because you can't find them, and or if you're like me, read your handwriting. Okay, sorry, I feel like I'm going through these kind of fast, but I am just fired up about organization today. And so those are the voice memos. Now, the 4th strategy I mentioned earlier in the previous episode, and that is to color code your calendar. So that's a mouthful, alliteration too, huh? Color code your calendar. This is with the type of service provided. So, for example, all my individual sessions are in pink on my calendar, and then all my small groups each have a different color depending on which small group they are. And guess what? That color coincides with the color that's on the caseload sheet. And then my class lessons all have a color, meetings have a color. Just the more colorful it is, it's really helpful to block off, and you can glance at your day and you see like, oh wow, I see a lot of green on here. I must have a lot of class lessons today. Number 5 strategy you can do, a digital to-do list. So I have a few apps I want to share with you for to-do list. So like I said, I was using that awful clipboard, carrying it around, always making notes on it that got jumbled, and it was just messy. So this is where digital apps are your friends. There is Trello, okay? And I will link to these in the show notes. I love Trello. It is a project management tool. So it's, if you are a visual person, it basically is like a bunch of visual sticky notes. Or I've had someone even compare it to, it's kind of similar to Pinterest, if Pinterest were a to-do list. So if you're a Pinterest person, you may find this appealing. Basically, it's very visual. There's different boards. Within these boards, there are lists, and then within the list, there are cards. So you can have different to-do lists with different cards, and you can slide them around. It's a really cool thing. Now, I think it is best for project management. So if you have a big project you're working on, it's also good for collaborating with other people. You can add collaborators. If you're working on a big project, like you're planning all of your lessons for the year, or you're preparing for an assembly or a parent education workshop, something like that, Trello could be your friend for a to-do list. Now, if you're looking just for a simple, very similar to like a paper and pencil to-do list with check boxes, try Todoist. Kind of a weird name. I'll link to it in the show notes as well. But Todoist is best for those reoccurring tasks, okay? So it's best for reoccurring tasks. It's really easy to put in there, like a repeat feature. And then the 3rd one is the Notes app on your phone. So if you have an iPhone, it's native to your iPhone, and then it also is on your Mac if you have a Mac, so you can back and forth work seamlessly, or an iPad. I'm sure there is an Android equivalent. I'm just not an Android gal. And Notes is the best for simplicity. You can do the little check boxes in there, and y'all, I use the Notes app for everything. Like my grocery list, I have my recipes on there. That's just a side hack. It's so not counseling related. But I put a recipe in there, and then I like copy paste it from the internet. And then the ingredients, I put little, turn them into check marks. You know what I'm talking about. You can select it and click the bubble, and it'll have bubbles. And then when I go to the grocery store, I just copy paste that whole checklist to my list. And some of the things I likely already have, like olive oil, salt, whatever. So then I just check those off. So if that's a little recipe organization hack for you while we're talking about organization. But all that to say, Notes is super simple. And you don't have to open another app. It's just like already right there on your phone. So those 3 digital to-do lists, Trello, which is best for project management, Todoist is best for a quick reoccurring task, and Notes is best for simplicity. So those are 3 that you can try. So there you go. Those are your 5 easy to implement strategies I want you to try for organization. And hopefully they help some of those areas that you were thinking about, those 3 areas from last episode that you were thinking that would make your life easier, such as your calendar, your materials, or your caseload. Hopefully those help you out. Now, why? Why do we care if we're organized or not, right? Becoming organized and efficient will help you maximize your impact. So again, seeing more students. So by being more efficient and more organized, you're spending less time clamoring around trying to find things and more time meeting with students and giving those direct services. Less time searching for things, more time counseling. This can also help you advocate for your position and get the recognition that you deserve because you're tracking the services you provided with your counseling log and with your Google Calendar. By using both these things, you can show to your colleagues and admin and parents and any other stakeholders who you're seeing. That would be confidential, but like how many students you're seeing. Like I'm seeing 10 kids individually. I'm doing 5 small groups. And you can share this information like in a school newsletter or on your school website as a way to advocate for the importance of your position. All right, so there you go. Those are your strategies. Please connect with me. Let me know if you're trying any of them and if they're working for you. Or if you have anything I would like to know, please share. Or you can share with everyone in our Facebook group. If you want to join us over there, please, we can all collaborate and share strategies. It's Bright Future School Counselors on Facebook. Okay, so your takeaway for this episode, I want you to go download that stress-free school counseling freebie. I've mentioned it before. It specifically has a part about organization that I think you will find super helpful. So go ahead and download it. It'll be a show note in the link, or you can message me to get the link as well. Okay, y'all. Talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.